Recording. All right. So working with working with formulas is one of the most important real life things that you can learn how to do that involves algebra. Okay. You use it in lots of different courses through your life. You can use it in science. There's formulas. Geography. There's formulas. Okay. A lot of different applications. Science. There's a lot of applications that use formulas. Okay, and math for sure. So we're going to learn to rearrange a formula for a different subject, okay, using the rules of solving equations, so using algebra. And we're also going to learn to substitute numbers into a formula to apply math to a real life situation. So one of the most important applications of solving equations actually is to work with formulas. So you're learning this for a purpose, and one of the purposes is to be able to rearrange an equation, okay? So for each formula, we want to rearrange it so the variable in the square bracket is the new subject. So right now, P is the subject because it's P equals, okay? We want to rearrange it so that it's Q equals. Q is the subject, okay? So you use the rules of solving equations to do it. So in this case, we want to get Q by itself. So we want to use reverse BEDMAS the same way we would if everything was numbers. We were getting X by itself. Okay? So we look at the side that has Q, and we want to undo any adding or subtracting first. So does anyone see any adding or subtracting on the side that has Q? Yeah. Plus 35. So the opposite operation is subtract 35. So look at me, I'm subtracting 35 here, but on the other side of the equals, I'm also subtracting 35. Okay? Amelia, stay with me. This stuff's important. So I'm going to cross off my plus 35 minus 35. Now, P minus 35, I don't know what that is because I don't know what P is. Does everyone agree? Like they're not like terms, so I can't make it negative 34P. If there was a P here, I could. Okay, I don't know what that is because I don't know what P is. So I just leave it. P minus 35 is P minus 35. And what's left on this side now is negative 3Q. And we're trying to get Q by itself. We want Q to be the new subject. Okay? So I'm still looking at the side with Q. I undid the adding. Is there any multiplying or dividing happening to the side of Q? Multiplying by negative 3. So the opposite operation is divide by negative 3. So I'm going to divide this whole side. Look at how long my division bar is. By negative 3. Okay, so now the only thing left on this side is Q. And on this side, I have P minus 35 over negative 3. So I've gotten Q by itself. But when you write out a formula, you always want it to start with the subject. So we don't want it to start with P minus 35. We want it to start with Q. So we can just switch our sides here since they're equal. Q equals P minus 35 over negative 3. So these formulas are actually the same. This one's got Q equals, so if you were given a value of P, you'd sub it in to find Q. And this one is P equals, so if you're given Q, you can find P. Okay? So really, they're just written differently. And I used algebra to get there. Okay? All right. V equals U plus AT, and I want to get T as my new subject. Yeah?
Quick question. So when we're like writing down the answer, does it need to be like the subject equals?
Yes. Yes. So when you're writing down the answer, you have to have Q equals to start off if they want Q to be the new subject. So our final answer is going to have T equals because it wants T to be the new subject. Okay? So we start off the side that has T, and we ask ourselves, the side that has T, is there any adding or subtracting happening on the side that has T? Yep. You're adding U, so I want to subtract U on both sides. So U minus U is a zero pair. That's gone. V minus U, I don't know what that is. So I just write down V minus U, since I don't know what it is. V minus U. Equals, what's left on this side is AT. When you have two letters side by side, what does it mean is happening between them? Multiplying. Two letters side by side is multiplying. So if I want to get T by itself, what would I do to both sides next? Divide by A. You want to undo the multiplying by A, and you divide that whole side by A. And now I know I want to start my formula off with T equals, so I can do T equals V minus U over A. T equals V minus U over A. So I rewrote this formula so that it had a new subject. Okay, yep. You may. So this one says I equals PRT. So three letters all side by side means they're all multiplying each other. And I want to write it with R as the subject. So, is there any adding or subtracting on the side that has R? No. Everybody good with that? Is there any multiplying or dividing on the side that has R? Yes. Both P and T are multiplying R. Does everyone agree that? So I want to divide both sides by P and T. So like P divided by P is 1, T divided by T is 1, so all I'm left with on this side is R. So I'm going to start R equals, and I know that my final answer has to have R equals I over PT. So there's my formula with R as the subject. Okay. All right. F equals 9/5 C plus 32. Before I start this one, if I see something I want to rewrite, I'm going to rewrite it first. So when I do this one, before I even start rearranging it, I'm going to write 9/5 C as 9C over 5. Because that's going to help me. Okay? So all I did was rewrite 9/5 C as 9C over 5. Now I look at the side that has C and see if there's any adding or subtracting. Yep. Subtract 32. Okay, so those are gone. F minus 32. Well, I don't know what that is, so I just write down F minus 32 equals 9C over 5. Again, I'm using reverse fed math, so I undid the adding or subtracting. Is there any multiplying or dividing? There's a multiply and a divide, so what do you want to take care of first? The divide by 5? Yeah, me too. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. So if I multiply this side by 5, guys, you have to put it in brackets, because you're multiplying that whole side by 5. And we can keep the brackets on, we're just getting a formula here, okay? So these 5s divide out to give me 1. So now I've got 5 bracket F minus 32 equals 9C. So my last step would be to divide both sides by 9. Perfect. So my formula, I have to squeeze it in over here, is going to be C equals 5 bracket F minus 32 all over 9. C equals 5 bracket F minus 32 all over 9. Okay? So I've changed it from F being the subject to C being the subject. Yep. Yes. Yes. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna write bed mass down again because I feel like that helps us. So I want to rewrite this so B is the subject, so it's B equals. So I start off on the side that has B. Is there any adding or subtracting happening? Good. So D is being subtracted, so I'm going to add D to both sides. So that creates a zero pair there. A plus D. I don't know what that is, so I just write down A plus D. Okay. Is there any dividing or multiplying on the side that has B? Is there an exponent? Yes. How do I undo the exponent of 2? Reese? Square root. Both sides, so the whole thing's under the square root, not just the A, not the A and D separately, the whole side. Okay? And so that's going to leave me with B. You always want to start off with your subject. Your new subject is B equals the square root of A plus D. Okay, X equals 8 times M minus F over D. And I want F as my new subject. So I look on the side. Now I've got this huge fraction bar with a D underneath. So what does that mean my first step has to be? Yes, okay, so this big division bar, I can't add up yet because I'm being trapped by that whole big divide by D. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this side by D, and I'm going to multiply this side by D. Both sides by D. Okay? D times X. I don't know what that is, but if I write them down side by side, it means they're multiplying. So dx equals, my point of multiplying by D was to undo this divide by D, so I'm left with 8m minus f. Okay, so now I'm back to regular bed mass. The side containing f, is there any adding or subtracting happening? Or what do you want to do next? Anyone tell me what you want to do? See if I can see your thinking. Yeah, Asha?
What I did is divide by 8.
You can't do that first. If you, yeah, you can't. This 8, you have to take care of the full term 8m. So what's the 8m doing on this side?
Divide by 8.
No, that would be if it was 8mf. If this side was 8mf with no minus sign between them, you could divide both sides by 8m totally, okay? But it's not, it's 8m minus f. Yep. 8m. So you want to add f to both sides?
No,
Andrew, you want to subtract 8m, okay. Nice. Okay, so now that you subtracted 8m minus 8m is 0. I've got negative f on this side. Dx minus 8m, I don't know what that is, so I just write it out. Dx minus 8m. But I don't want negative f, I want positive f. So now what do? I can divide by -1 for sure. So then I'm going to write out f equals, right? F equals dx minus 8m over -1. Great work, isn't it? We got 2 minutes. Okay, we think we'll do one more, and then we'll call our lunch. I'm going to get E by itself. So we want E to be our new subject.
I just have a question for the
Yes.
last question.
Yeah.
So why exactly can't you divide by 8? What's that mean?
8m. So do you see that it has multiplied by d? So because the eta wasn't multiplying the f, it was adding to the negative.
Oh, I just thought because, oh, right.
It would have to be h and half, yeah.
Oh,
It would have to be h and half for that. All right, who thinks they know what they would do first to both sides on this one? Vanessa? Subtracted 1? Yes, I would do that too. So h minus 1, I don't know what that is, so I just leave it, equals negative 2e. And don't drop your negative. Yeah, John? Divide by negative 2, good. So then I want to write it as e equals h minus 1 over negative 2. Great. Okay, I'll pause this. Okay. All right, so v equals 1/3 pi. Pi is a number. Did you remember that from elementary school? 3.14151791 on forever. Okay. R squared h. Okay. And we want to rewrite it. So instead of being v equals, it's r equals. Okay? So that's, we're going to rearrange this formula. So instead of being v equals, it ends up being r equals. Okay? So the first step is to rewrite it so it looks more like this. Okay? So I'm going to write it as 1 times pi r squared, which is pi r squared h. Sorry, 1 times pi r squared h all over 3. So that would be my first step, is to rewrite it like that. Okay, so it's all over 3. And then I just want to use reverse FEDMAS to slowly get r by itself. So what would you do to both sides first?
I have a question. How
Yes.
do you undo the pi r equals squared?
How do you undo the pi? We'll get there. That question's going to come up. It's a number, remember, so whatever we're doing to it, we're going to do the opposite. So it's multiplying, so we'll end up dividing, okay? But what would we do first before we take care of pi? Yep. Multiply both sides by 3. Oops, I meant to use colored brackets there. Multiply this side by 3 to undo this divide by 3. So I multiply this side by 3. And notice if you put the number 3 right beside a letter, it means multiply. So 3b means 3 times b. Okay? So on this side I have 3b. I multiply by 3 to undo the divide by 3, so they divide out. Okay? And I'm left with pi r squared h. Okay? And I'm slowly trying to get it so it's r equals r by itself. So then, William said, what's the pi doing? It's right beside the r, so it's multiplying. Everyone agree? Same with the h, it's right beside the r, so it's multiplying. So what's the opposite operation of multiplying? Dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides by pi h. Okay, so if I divide by pi h on this side, I divide by pi h on this side. Okay? So I'm thinking pi divided by pi is 1, h divided by h is 1, so all I'm left with on this side is r squared. On the other side I've got 3v divided by pi times h. Don't know what that is, so just leave it like that. But I don't want r squared equals, I want r equals. So what would I do? Square root. And when you square root, make sure it goes all the way down to the bottom of the fraction. Okay? So the whole 3d over pi h is under a big square root. Okay? And then I'm going to rewrite it so that r equals, so r equals big square root of 3b over pi h. Okay. All right, y equals a minus b all over c. and we want to rewrite it so that it's A equals. So again, we use reverse BEDMAS, but because we've got this fraction bar over A minus B is all over C, I have to deal with that over C first. So how do I undo big divided by C? Julian? Multiply by C. So I'm going to multiply this side by C and this side by C, which is really easy because if you put C right beside Y, it means C times Y. Okay? So C times Y, I don't know what that is, so I just write CY. On this side, the reason I multiplied by C was to undo the divide by C. So I'm just left with A minus B. Yep. You can add the B now. Perfect. Add B to both sides to undo the subtract B. So again, yep.
But does it matter if it's CY or YC?
No, it doesn't matter. Good question. So C times Y and Y times C would give you the same thing, just a different order of multiplication. So here's, I don't know what CY plus B is, so I'm just going to write CY plus B equals A. But because A is my subject, I have to start with A equals. So I'm going to write A equals C times Y plus B. Okay? All right, for J, the first thing I would want to do is rewrite it. Yeah.
Multiply the 1 to get a squared.
Yeah, so 1 times AT squared is just AT squared over 2. So that would be my first step. Okay? I slowly want to get A as my subject. So what would be the first thing I would do to both sides? Yep. Multiply by 2, good. So what I'm going to do is divide by 2, and then it's as easy as just putting a 2 beside that V, multiplying by 2 on the other side. So on the left, I've got 2V. I multiply by 2 to undo the divide by 2. So on this side, I've got AT squared. Yep.
How do you divide that?
You divide by close. T squared. Yeah, I can just divide by T squared. Because the A is not B squared, right? Just the T. And I want to get A as my subject. So I end up with just A, oops, I want to do that black, A equaling 2V over T squared. A equaling 2V over T squared. That would be if they wanted me to get T by itself, or if A was squared, then I'd have to square root, but A is not squared, so I'm okay. Yeah?
How did the T get out of the A?
So the T squared was, because it's right beside the A, it was multiplying. So I want to undo the opposite of multiplying by T squared, which is dividing by T squared. Okay, so when two letters are side by side, it means multiply. Okay? All right. E equals R1 plus R2 plus R3. So these little 1s, 2s, and 3s are not exponents. We call them subscripts. Okay, so in this case, they represent resistors in a circuit. So this is resistor 1, resistor 2, and resistor 3. Okay, so they're not exponents. Everybody good? Okay, and I want to get R1 as my subject. John? Subtract both of them. Good. So subtract R2 on both sides. So there's a 0 pair. Subtract R3 on both sides. So that's a 0 pair. And we subtracted because we did the opposite of add. Very good. So I don't know what E minus R2 minus R3 is. So I just write it out. But it equals R1. And then I got R1 by itself. So I just have to make sure I have R1 on my left side. And E minus resistor 2 minus resistor 3 on my right side. Perfect. Good. Okay, m equals 2e over v squared, and you want to rewrite it with v equals. I'm going to put a little star on this one. So, the issue I would feel like for this one is I want to have v equals, but v is in the denominator. Does everyone see that? Any ideas how I can get it?
You can multiply the two.
Multiply the 2e,
Well,
multiply the v squared. So if I multiply both sides by v squared, what happens? It goes away from this side, but it's on the numerator on that side. So you have v squared times n. So I don't know what that is, so I'm just going to do it as v squared times n equals 2e. And now all of a sudden I've switched sides. Now remember, it's v I'm trying to get by itself, and now v appears on the left side. Okay? Yeah.
you can divide by n.
Now you can divide by m. Very good. So v squared is 2 times e, whatever that is, over m. But I don't want v squared, I want v square root. And then make sure on the right side you use the really big square root. Okay? So v equals big square root of 2 times e over m. So when what you want to be your subject is in the denominator, your first step is multiplying both sides by that. So it gets to be at the numerator of the other side. Okay? Good strategy. Okay, good. All right, a similar question where what we want to get by itself happens to be in the denominator. F equals GMN all divided by D. What would we do first? Yeah.
Multiply by D.
Yes, multiply by D. So D times F, I don't know what that is, so I just keep it as D times F. These D's divide out, equals G and N. And it's D that I want to get by itself. What's that? Divide by F, good. So the formula with D as the subject is D equals G M N divided by F. G M N divided by F. Okay? So that's really that's what you have to know about rearranging formulas using algebra. Now we'll apply it to some specific formulas. So the formula for the volume of a cylinder, it shows you one there, so everyone's got a picture in their head of the cylinder, okay? Is V equals pi r squared h. Rearrange the formula so that r is the subject. So I'll give you a chance to think on that. All right, so as I was walking around, I noticed that a lot of people's first step was to divide by pi h. And that's correct. Okay, you want to get r by itself. Right now on the side with r, it's the r squared term is being multiplied by pi on one side and by h on the other. So you want to do the opposite of multiplying by pi and h and divide both sides by pi and h. Okay? So that's going to give you v over pi times h equals r squared. Then you don't want r squared, you want r, so what do you have to do? Please square root both sides. And then we want to write it as r equals. So r equals big square root v divided by pi times h. Okay, so that's the formula rewritten with r as the subject. Okay? Now part B says determine the radius of the cylinder to the right. So it's a cylinder. we're given information about it. We're given the height is 12 centimeters. And the volume we're given and written in this weird way, the volume is 300 times pi centimeters cubed. 300 pi means 300 times centimeters cubed. So we can figure out what that is approximately. I just want you to know what it is approximately, but we're going to leave it as 300 pi. But if you type in your calculator 300 times and then your pi button, or you could do 3.14, either one, you're going to get approximately 942.477. Okay, so that means the volume, 300 pi means the volume is about 942.5-ish. Okay, but the reason, anyone know the reason that you would write volume as 300 pi rather than as approximately 942.5? Yeah.
So it's writing the decimals and
Yeah, this is an exact number, okay? No rounding necessary. 300 pi is exact, it's perfect. It's a perfect number, right? No rounding involved. Here I have to round, okay? So, but you have to know that that means 300 times pi, okay? If you don't know that that's what it means, then you don't really understand what the volume is, right? So it's just another way, it's the perfect way of writing the volume without being approximate. You're being exact, 300 pi, okay? All right, so we want to find the radius, and we just made a formula for radius in terms of volume and height. So we can use that formula. So let's write our new formula out. And we can replace volume with 300 pi. Because it says the volume is 300 pi. Okay? And then we've got a pi on the bottom. And we can replace height with 12. Because it gives us the height. All I did was replace volume with 300 pi, because that's the volume. And replace height in brackets with 12. Pi times 12. Okay? So I just plugged in the numbers they gave me into the formula in the right spot. Someone tell me what happens if you've got a pi on the top and a pi in the denominator. They create a 1 pair, right? If I divide those, pi divided by pi is 1. And multiplying by 1 doesn't change anything. Agree with that? So on my next line down, I can say, I've divided those out in my head. I've got 300 over 12. Okay? Now I want to figure out what's underneath the square root sign next, so I'm going to divide. That's a divided by there. 300 divided by 12 is 25. And then my last step is to take the square root of 25, which is 5. And if the height was measured in centimeters, that means, and the volume is centimeters cubed, what's the radius going to be? Centimeters as well, yes. Radius is, like if you've got a cylinder, radius is the distance from the center to the outside. Remember that from grade 7 or 8? So radius is, and then height is height. Okay. All right, so we did it. We got the radius, and therefore the radius is 5 centimeters. Yep.
How much is pi?
How much is
Pi with
pi? 3.14. So pi is approximately 3.14, approximately. Okay. If you have a pi button, everyone find your pi button on your calculator. Some of you might need a shift, okay, but you will have one if it's a scientific calculator. And then press, you'll see the symbol, but if you press equals, my calculator will go 3.14159264, and then it runs out of room. So if you have a choice, I just use my pi button when I'm using. If I see it's like 5 times pi, I go 5 times my pi button instead of 5 times 3.14. okay? But some people were trained in elementary school to use 3.14, okay? But that's just an approximation. Remember, the decimals go on forever and ever and ever. Never repeat, never stop. Pi is a special number, irrational. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, I think we've got another one to go here. This was a DQAO question. Oh, I know I did this one, so we're going to do this one a bit differently. Also a formula question, but we're going to attack it differently. So you're going to see kind of two ways of attacking a formula question. So the cylinder pictured below has a surface area of 660 centimeters squared. So again, that idea of highlighting or circling important information. Okay, so we know the surface area is 660 square centimeters. Use the following formula. That's another important piece of information. So use this formula. It doesn't tell us to rearrange it to determine the height. So height is what we want to find. Now the diagram gives us a piece of information. So if I'm looking at my formula, I'm going to rewrite it to the side here. Instead of S surface area, I'm just going to write SA equals 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi rh. And just so people know what we're talking about, who knows what surface area is or who remembers what it is? Asha?
That's like when you find the area of all the surfaces on a 3D object and add it together.
Right, so it would be the area of the bottom, if this was a perfect cylinder, the area of the bottom, the area of the top, and then the area around the outside. Okay, if I added all those areas together, then I would get surface area. That's why it's called the area on the surface. Does that make sense? Surface area, okay. All right, so what is this 14 centimeters got to do with the question? Reese.
It's the diameter, which is
Very good.
radius.
They give me the diameter, and then I have to know that radius is half of the diameter. So r equals 7 centimeters is the purpose of them giving us the diameter. Because there's no diameter in the question. Does everyone see that? There's no D, there's an R. Okay? So now we're going to attack this one more like we've done those perimeter questions. Surface area. I just didn't want to write the full thing out. Okay, good. All right, so out of these things, I know surface area is 660. So I can replace SA with 660. And I can replace R with 7, but because it's right beside the 2 pi, I need to use brackets, squared, plus 2 pi, and then I have to use brackets for r again. So once I've put all my number information they gave me, what you notice is the only variable left, the only thing I don't know left is height, which is what they're asking me to find. So once I put all those numbers in, the only thing I have left is height, which is what they want me to find. Okay? So, any ideas of what you could do next?
You can rearrange using the reverse cut down.
Yes. Do you want to simplify anything before we do that? Could we make this term look easier?
Oh yeah, you did multiply that.
So I could do the 2 times the 7 squared? Is everybody good with that? Because this is 3 things being multiplied together, right? 2, pi, and 7 squared. So if I don't want to create any decimals, I can multiply the 2 and the 7 squared. And so I know 7 squared is 49. So 49 times 2 is 98. So I'm going to leave the 660 alone. And instead of writing this as 2 times pi times 7 squared, can I write it as 98 times pi? Can I? Yes. Plus, and then here, 2 times pi times 7 times h, can I rewrite that as 14 pi h? Yep.
Why is there no, squared on the other side?
I'm following the formula. You're asking why there's not a square root of 660. I know what you're asking me why. This is just units. Those are the units. Like the units of area are square centimeters. It doesn't mean the 660 is being squared. Okay? Centimeters squared means there's 660 little 1 by 1 squares that make the surface area. You don't square the 660. These are the units of area. Area's units are square centimeters. Okay? If it was written like this, then you would square the 660. But the squared is on the centimeters part, it's the units. Okay? All right, we simplified it a bit. Now what? Doesn't look quite as complicated. After what were you going to do next? You were going to subtract this term over, and now it doesn't look as horrible, right? Can we do that? Yep.
Can we not just add those together?
Add these two together?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so glad you asked that. You can't because this one doesn't have an H and this one does, so they're not like terms. Okay, so in order to combine these, I would need to have an H on this one as well, and then I could do 98 pi plus 14 pi, but they both have the N and H. Yeah.
You could simplify by dividing by 2.
By dividing by 2, yes I could, because 2 goes into every single thing. I could do that. Do you want to do that? You can? Does that make sense to everybody? You want to see that these are even? You can. It's not wrong to do it. It's adding in another step for you. You can do. Does it? Okay, we won't do that one. Does anyone see if we're trying to get H by itself and we're using reverse BEDMAS? Is there any adding or subtracting on the term that has H? Yes, there's a big plus sign right here. So what's adding to the term that has H in it? 98 pi? So can I subtract 98 pi? All right, so 660 minus 98 pi equals 14 times pi times H. Yep, Vanessa?
Then you would divide by 14 pi.
Yes. Oops. So there's my answer, that's what H equals, but I want to see it as a decimal number. So I'm going to rewrite it like this first. I want to figure out what that is using my calculator now. So give me the first step. It's going to take steps. I want to figure out what this is on the calculator. Yep.
Divide 98 pi by 14 pi.
No, I can't do it because this track is stopping me. So, but can I calculate these guys? Can I figure out what those are as decimals on the calculator? Yeah, so that's gonna be my next step. So 98 times pi. So you can do 3.14 or you can press your pi button, but you should get approximately 307.876. And then 14 times pi, 43.982, approximately. Okay. And then a fraction bar question. You want to make the top as simple as you can and the bottom as simple as you can and then divide, right? So I can subtract those. 660 minus 307.876 is 352.124 over 43.982. And then when we divide those, that's going to be our height. But it's a rounded number, so I have the dot above the equal sign to show that it's approximate. So 352.124 divided by 43.982 gives me 8.006, so approximately 8.0 centimeters. So we had to go through all that work to get that the height of that cylinder was 8 centimeters. All that work to show that the height of that was 8 centimeters. Okay, so instead of rearranging for height first, we put all the numbers in and then slowly got height by itself. Okay? All right, last question, I think it is. This is an EQ8O question. The last one was 2. The cone shown below is 20 centimeters high. So I guess I can add that in for height here. And has a total volume. So the volume is 1,000 cubic centimeters. Which of the following is the closest to the radius? And then it gives you a hint box with the formula in it. Everyone see the hint box with volume equals 1/3 pi r squared h? And which one is it asking me for? Radius? So can you guys rearrange this formula so it's r equals, radius equals? That's what I would like you to try and do. Rearrange that formula so it's radius equals, and then see if you have the numbers to put in. We do have the volume, and we do have the height, so we should be able to use our new formula to find the radius. So I've got some people, what's the first step? So the first step for me would be rewriting it as pi r squared h over 3. And I want to get r equals, because I want to find the radius. So r equals. So what would I do next? Reese?
Times it by 3.
Times it by 3? Yes. So 3 times b equals pi r squared h. I'm trying to get r by itself. Yep, for you? Divide by pi and h. Perfect. So now I've got r squared equals 3b over pi h. I still want r by itself. Vanessa? Big square root, good. So now I've got the formula down. So the formula I'm going to use is going to be r equals big square root 3 times volume over pi times height. Okay, that's my formula. Now I've got to put a number in for volume, which they give me in the question, and a number in for height, which they give me in the question. So my radius is going to be the square root of 3, and if I put 1,000 in for volume, I have to put it in brackets, over pi times, what's h? 20? Everybody good? And it's a fraction bar underneath that square root, so we want to make the top as simple as possible. So I can multiply the top out. 3 times 1,000 is 3,000. Pi times 20. So let's figure that out. Pi times 20. Yep. 8,3. Okay, 1, sure. Yep.
Always pick out like the first three.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Okay. Just to be safe. 2 usually works, but 3 makes you safe. All right, now I've got to do the division. So I'm going to do 3,000 divided by 62.831. And that gives me 47.747. And then finally, square root it. And it's got to be one of those answers. So what does the question say? Which of the following is closest to the length of the radius? Did you guys get 6.9 approximately? So that would be A. Okay. So we rearranged the formula so it was R equals, and then we could put the volume and the height in, and we figured out the numerator, the denominator, divided, square root it. Okay. All right, good. Stop the recording.